In today's gospel, we hear the story of Jesus' care for his followers. Just like the feeding of the 5,000, we hear our Lord feeding 4,000 more. Yet again, he multiplies but a small bit of food to ensure that everybody has enough. There are clear parallels here to the most blessed sacrament, where our Lord strengthens us by providing us with his body and his blood. Our Lord cares about both our bodily and our spiritual needs by providing us with this sacrament a means of grace which sustains both our physical and our spiritual needs. Much has been said about our Lord's provision for our spiritual needs, as well as his providing his body and blood for us so that we may be nourished and continue in life. Yet this story strikes me because our Lord thinks so much about people's physical needs. He says that if I send them hungry, they will collapse along the way home. For me, this is a sign that our Lord cares about our daily needs as well, that we're to cast upon him our cares and ask him to give us our daily bread. He takes pity on people and wants to ensure in this gospel that they are fed. He gives them their spiritual needs to sustain him. Yet again, the apostles question him, where can we get enough bread? Despite having seen he has the ability as God to multiply food, they question him. We are as faithless today as the apostles were then. How many times, me included, when things have gotten difficult, do we ask God, why is this happening to me? Where is my next need going to come from? Yet our Lord tells us that these are the things about which the pagans worry, and that Solomon, in all of his finery, would be arrayed less than we can be if we trust in God. We must trust in God's providence, and he will provide. There are many anecdotes and stories about when this has happened. I remember during my formation, my mentor told me the story that he once knew a group of sisters who had a reverend mother as their head who was considered to be quite feisty. And the story goes that every month the order would come up short and not know how it was going to pay its bills. So the Reverend Mother, in her great trust of God, would write checks out for all of the bills and then collect the ones that she couldn't pay. And she would march into the church and march up to the altar and throw them on it and say, "These are yours." This story to me exemplifies the kind of care that we're to have and the kind of trust that we're to have in our belief in God's taking care of us. It's not easy. Someone like me who's an incessant planner and worrier, it's something that's very difficult. But our Lord tells us to cast our burdens upon him, for his yoke is easy and his burden is light. What also strikes me about this gospel is that our Lord took the loaves of the apostles and used them to feed others. What this says to me is that sometimes God sends us to others to help and sustain them in their need. We cannot ignore the call of our Lord to serve others, to share what we have, to feed the hungry, to clothe the naked, to visit the imprisoned, or to bury the dead. We must be instruments of God's will by serving one another, by caring for one another. For God works through us to care for all of his children. There's a story also that goes around. I've seen this posted on social media and in other places, that a man was distraught by all the pain and the suffering around him. And he breaks down and he strikes his fists into the dirt. His head turns upward and he yells at God, "Look at this mess. Look at all this pain and suffering. Look at this killing and this hate. God, oh God, why don't you do something, anything?" And God speaks back to the man and says, "I did. I sent you." We are called to be instruments of God's grace. And we are called to trust in God, to know that our needs will be taken care of, either by God directly or by someone who is the hands and the feet of our blessed Lord. Oh God, you provide for us spiritually and physically whenever we have need. Yet we often still doubt you and worry and have anxiety about where things are going to come from to help us. Be with us and help our faith. Help us to better trust in you, to know your love and care for us in all of our needs, and help us to respond to others, to allow you to act through us so that we may be your hands and your feet in serving others. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.